The first time I heard it, I thought someone had left a kettle on in the house. That soft, rising whistle, the kind that starts low and slowly sharpens, like steam building pressure. It was faint at first, almost easy to ignore, blending into the quiet the way old houses sometimes hum at night. But this wasn't my house. It had been empty for years. I was only there because the property has just been sold and I'd agreed to check the place before the new owners moved in. A simple walkthrough. That's what I told myself when I unlocked the front door and stepped into a space that already felt like it had been waiting too long. The air inside was still, not stale, just undisturbed, like nothing had moved in days, weeks, maybe longer. My footsteps echoed more than they should have, each one carrying farther into the rooms ahead, as if the house had more depth than it showed from the outside. I hadn't even reached the kitchen when I heard it, that soft whistle again, faint, drawn out, somewhere deeper inside the house. I stopped walking immediately, listening carefully, trying to place it. The sound didn't behave like something coming from a fixed point. It didn't echo properly. It didn't bounce off walls or fade into corners. It just stayed, like it existed in the air itself. I moved slowly toward the kitchen anyway, telling myself it had to be something simple, a pipe, maybe, or wind slipping through a narrow gap somewhere in the structure. But the moment I stepped into the doorway, the sound stopped. Not faded, stopped. Just like that, completely. The kitchen was empty, no kettle, no stove turned on, no sign of anything that could have made that noise. I stood there longer than I should have, waiting for it to start again. It didn't. So I turned to leave the room, and the second I stepped back into the hallway, it started again, right behind me. I turned around immediately, too fast, like catching it in the act would somehow make it make sense. The kitchen was exactly the same, empty, still, nothing out of place, but the sound was still there. That thin, rising whistle, sharper now, closer than before, like it had followed me out of the room instead of staying behind in it. I held my breath to listen properly. The sound didn't fill the house, it didn't echo, it stayed right next to me, as if it wasn't coming from the kitchen anymore, as if it had moved into the hallway. I stepped back again, slower this time, testing it. The whistle adjusted instantly. Not louder, not softer, just closer. Like it was matching me without needing distance. That's when I noticed something I hadn't paid attention to before. The air wasn't still anymore. It felt tight, like something invisible had taken up space in the hallway, and I was sharing it without seeing it. I turned the flashlight on my phone and held it up, sweeping it across the walls, the floor, the corners where dust had settled untouched. Nothing. But the sound didn't react to the light, didn't shift, didn't hide. It just kept building slowly, rising higher in pitch, like a kettle just before it screams. And then it cut off again, dead. No fade, no drop, just gone. I didn't move this time, didn't even breathe, because I knew what was coming next. A few seconds passed, too quiet, too empty, and then, from somewhere behind me again, that same whistle started rising, closer than before. I didn't turn this time. I just stood there, staring straight down the hallway, letting the sound build behind me while every instinct in my body told me to run or at least look. But I needed to understand it. The whistle kept rising, slow, controlled, not random like a broken pipe or wind slipping through cracks. It had rhythm, it had intention. It felt aware of how long it was holding the sound. I took one careful step forward. The whistle followed, not louder, not softer, just closer, like it had adjusted in position to stay exactly where it wanted to be, right behind me. My throat went dry instantly because that meant one thing. It wasn't coming from the house, it was moving inside it. I forced myself to take another step, then another. The halfway stretched ahead into darkness, leading toward the back rooms I hadn't checked yet, the kind of rooms that stay closed for years, collecting silence instead of dust. The whistle sharpened higher now, closer to that breaking point where a kettle usually starts screaming. I stopped walking, and the sound didn't pass me, didn't overshoot, didn't stay behind. It stayed exactly where it had been, just over my shoulder. Breathing distance, I could feel it now. No, not air movement, not heat, just presence, like something invisible had leaned in close enough that if I turned suddenly, I would be face to face with it. The whistle cut again, instant, clean. I swallowed slowly, trying to steady myself, trying to force logic back into the situation. Then I made a mistake. I stepped into the next room without checking behind me, and the moment I crossed the doorway, the whistle started again, but this time, it wasn't behind me. It was inside the room. I froze in the doorway. The sound was already inside the room, not entering with me, not following, waiting. That thin whistle started low again, like it had reset itself the moment I crossed into the space, slowly building from nothing as if it had all the time in the world to reach its peak. I didn't step fully inside. I didn't step back either, because something about the way the sound behaved made it clear. The doorway didn't matter. Wherever I stood, it would adjust. I lifted my phone light and pushed it into the room first, letting the beam sweep across the floor, the corners, the far wall. Dust covered everything. Old furniture sat untouched and draped in sheets that had settled into place years ago. Nothing moved. Nothing reacted. But the sound didn't belong to anything I could see. It didn't echo off the walls, didn't bounce across the furniture. It just existed in the center of the room. And then it shifted. Not location, not direction, position. The whistle rose slightly in pitch and felt closer to my face, like something invisible had leaned forward to beat the edge of the light. I pulled the phone back instinctively. The sound followed it. Exactly. No delay, no lag. My grip tightened around the phone because now I understand something that didn't make sense but felt completely certain. It wasn't tied to the room. It was tied to me. The whistle kept rising, sharper now, pushing toward the unbearable point where it should break into a scream. I stepped back out of the doorway suddenly. The sound snapped off. Gone. The room went dead silent again. I stood there, breathing harder than I should have been, staring into a space that looked completely empty again, like nothing had ever been there. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then I heard it again, but not in the room, not behind me, somewhere deeper in the house, further in than I had even walked yet. And this time, it started already halfway to the screen. I shouldn't have followed it. Every instinct was telling me to leave, to walk straight back out of the front door and not try to make sense of something that clearly didn't want to be understood. But the sound had changed. Before, it was reacting to me. Now, it was ahead of me. The whistle was already sharp, already rising toward the unbearable edge, coming from deeper inside the house, past rooms I hadn't even checked yet. It wasn't following anymore. it was leading. I moved down the hallway slowly, my steps quieter now, like I was trying not to alert something that already knew exactly where I was. The floor creaked under my weight, but the sound didn't respond to it. It kept building steadily, like it didn't care about anything except reaching that peak. I passed another doorway and glanced inside quickly. Empty. Dust-covered furniture, still air, no movement, but the moment I passed it, the whistle dipped slightly, just enough to tell me something that adjusted behind me. I stopped walking. The sound didn't. It kept going from ahead, pulling me forward, but there was something else now, a second presence in the silence behind me that wasn't making noise, but felt just as real. I turned slowly. Nothing. The hallway was empty, exactly the way I had left it, but the air felt heavier there, like something had taken position without needing to show itself. I turned back toward the sound. It was louder now, closer to breaking, coming from the last door at the end of the hallway. That door was shut, the only one that was. The whistle pushed higher, sharper, right on the edge of turning into something else. I reached the door slowly, my hand hovering just inches from the handle. And the moment my fingers touched it, the sound stopped completely. Not from inside the room, from everywhere. The whole house went silent again. I didn't move, didn't open the door, because this time the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like something was waiting for me to decide what happens next. I kept my hand on the handle longer than I should have. The metal was colder than the rest of the house, like it hadn't been touched in a long time, or like something else had been holding it before me. The silence pressed in. Not natural silence, the kind that follows noise, but something heavier, something that felt like the house itself had paused, waiting for me to move first. I turned the handle slowly. It didn't resist. No creak, no tension. The door opened too smoothly, like it had been expecting this. Inside was another room, empty, just like the others. Bare floor, covered furniture, a single window with curtains hanging still and unmoving. Nothing that could explain the sound that had been coming from here just seconds ago. I stepped inside carefully. The floor didn't creak this time. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Everything else in the house had reacted to my weight, but here, nothing. No sound, no feedback. Like the room wasn't fully connected to the rest of the house. I turned slowly, scanning every corner again, forcing my mind to find something, anything that made sense. Nothing, just stillness, too clean, too quiet. I took another step in, and the door behind me closed, not slammed, not pushed, just shut. I spun around immediately and grabbed the handle. It didn't open. No resistance, no lock, just like before, unresponsive. The silence thickened instantly, and then, right beside my ear, the whistle started again. Not low this time, not rising. Already high, already sharp, already at the edge of breaking. I flinched hard and pulled away from the sound, pressing myself toward the center of the room as if distance would help, but it didn't move away. It stayed with me, right beside my ear. That sharp, unbearable whistle held steady now, no longer rising, no longer building, just fixed at the edge where it should have already broken into a scream, but it didn't. It stayed there, sustained, controlled, like something was deliberately holding it at that exact pitch. I covered one ear with my hand. It didn't change. The sound wasn't entering from outside. It was just there, inside the space I occupied. I turned slowly, trying to face it directly. The room didn't respond. No shadows shifting, no objects moving, nothing to confirm direction. But the moment I turned fully in place, the whistle shifted slightly, not away from me, not toward me, but aligning itself so it was once again right next to my ear, matching my position perfectly. My breathing became uneven because now it wasn't just following me, it was correcting itself around me. I took a step to the side. It adjusted instantly. No delay, no movement, sound, just perfect alignment again. The pitch climbed slightly higher. No, not much. Just enough to push it closer to something unbearable. My head started to feel tight, like the sound wasn't just noise anymore, it was pressure, building inside my ears, behind my eyes. I moved faster, 2 steps, 3. It matched everyone, exactly. No distance lost, no distance gained, just constant presence. And then I realized something that made everything worse. It wasn't trying to reach a scream anymore. It was holding me right before it. I pressed both hands over my ears, hard, tight enough that I should have blocked everything out. The whistle didn't change, not muffled, not reduced, exactly the same. That's when panic actually set in, not from the sound itself, but from the realization that I wasn't something I could shut out. It wasn't entering through my ears anymore, it was happening to me. I stumbled toward the door again and pulled at the handle harder this time. Nothing. No resistance, no movement. Just that same dead, unresponsive feeling, like the idea of opening it didn't exist here. Behind me, the room shifted. Not in a way I could see immediately, but I felt it. The air tightened again, pressing inward, like the walls had leaned closer without making a sound. The whistle climbed higher, still not breaking, still holding me right at the edge. My vision blurred slightly, just for a second, and when it cleared, something was different. The furniture in the room wasn't in the same place, not dramatically, just enough to feel wrong, like I had stepped into a slightly altered version of the same place. I turned quickly, scanning the corners again. Nothing moved, but everything felt closer. The ceiling lower, the walls tighter, the space shrinking around me without physically closing in. I tried to speak. Nothing came out, not even a whisper. The whistle filled that gap instantly, sharper now, more focused, like it had been waiting for me to try and use my voice. And then it shifted again. Nope, not position, not volume, attention. Because for the first time since it started, it wasn't just beside my ear anymore. It was in front of me. I froze. My flashlight trembled in my hand, the beam bouncing across the walls as if it were afraid to. The whistle had moved, not enough sound waves, not through space as I understood it, but it was undeniably in front of me now, right where my eyes should have landed on something. I couldn't see it, not fully, but the air shimmered subtly, like the edges of reality itself were bending. Shadows shifted where there shouldn't have been any. The corners of the room seemed to deepen, stretching outward, forming angles that weren't architectural. The whistle pulsed in rhythm now, rising, falling, teasing me. I could feel it pressing against my chest, each pulse like it was testing my heartbeat, mirroring me, watching. I tried to move backward, 1 step, 2. My feet felt heavier than the floor should allow. Something invisible clutched at the space around me, resting. confining. The furniture, the draped chairs, the old curtains, they all seemed subtly wrong now. Angles not matching the ceiling, shadows moving against the light, and the whistle, my only guide, was everywhere and nowhere, wrapping around me in a way that made the house itself feel alive. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run, but my throat was tied, my legs felt slow, and then I heard a second whistle, closer, different, echoing, mimicking the first. It wasn't random, it wasn't harmless, it was waiting. And I realized there were more than one now, and they were all inside me. The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. I had been chasing a sound all along, a harmless, whistling tea kettle, or so the stories said. But this was something else, something patient, something that knew exactly where I would go before I even moved. I glanced at the doorway behind me, the only exit. The hallway stretched out, dark and silent, yet I could feel it extending unnaturally. The whistle followed, not echoing from behind, but inhabiting the very air around me. Every step I took, it mirrored. Every breath I drew, it pulsed in rhythm. And then I saw it, not fully, not in form, but eyes, tiny pinpricks of reflective light, not red, not glowing unnaturally, just watching, focused, waiting. I realized that the harmless spirit I had read about, the Teakettler, was nothing harmless at all. It wasn't waiting to scare. It wasn't waiting to vanish. It was waiting to follow. The whistle rose higher than anything a kettle could produce. My ears rang, my heart throbbed. I tried to step backward, only to feel the floor resist. The walls subtly shift closer, compressing the space around me. And that's when the full truth hit me. This creature doesn't haunt empty houses. It haunts you. It can imitate, it can stalk, it can echo and anticipate, and it will not stop until it has claimed every step you take, every room you enter, every space you consider safe. I realized the stories weren't exaggerations. The Teakettler had been whispering its warning through centuries. Follow the sound and you belong to it. I wanted to flee. My legs refused. My throat tightened further and the whistling crescendoed, piercing, omnipresent, inescapable. And that's when I understood this house was never empty and I was never alone. Panic surged through me, raw and sharp, and I tried to turn, to run, to escape, but the hallway had changed. It wasn't the same hallway I had walked down moments ago. The walls stretched just enough to keep me inside, to twist the space in a way that made my exits feel further away with every desperate step. The whistling wasn't behind me now. It wasn't ahead. It was all around, filling every corner, every shadow, every crack in the floorboards. I could feel it vibrating against my chest, searing into my ears, each note perfectly measured, as if the sound itself knew my limits and was testing them. I stumbled over a rug that hadn't been there before, my flashlight skidding across the floor, throwing beams that didn't illuminate the edges correctly. Shadows bent and shifted unnaturally, forming impossible angles that made the house feel alive. And then I heard them. Not one whistle now, but dozens, echoes overlapping, whispering, testing, teasing. Tiny variations in pitch, subtle changes that made me turn in circles, searching for the source. The air thickened, my breathing became ragged, my heart raced, pounding against my rib cage like a drum. Then, in the center of cacophony, a single whistle rose above all others, clear, sharp, deliberate, right next to my ear. I could almost feel the invisible presence leaning toward me as if it had materialized just behind my shoulder. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My voice was trapped in my throat, choked by the weight of the house and the oppressive presence of whatever was following me. And in that moment, I realized the truth. There is no safety in this house, no corner to hide, no door to shut, because the Teakettler wasn't bound by walls, by space, or by sight. It existed wherever I was, and wherever I went, it would follow. I collapsed onto the floor, my flashlight slipping from my hands, casting trembling shadows across the room. The whistling didn't pause. It circled me, rising and falling like waves in a storm, mocking, teasing, reminding me that escape was impossible. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but my body refused to obey. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was hearing, what I was feeling. The air itself seemed alive, pressing in, whispering around me in a language I could almost understand, but never fully grasp. And then it stopped, just like that. The whistling fell silent, not fading, not dropping, just gone. The house returned to an eerie stillness, the kind that makes you question if the previous horrors were ever real. I stayed frozen, waiting for it to start again, for the sound to return, for the invisible presence to reappear beside me, just beyond my vision. Minutes or hours, I couldn't tell, passed in silence. My chest heaved, my ears rang, my entire body ached with tension. I realized, finally, that the Teakettler didn't need to be seen or to terrify. Its power lay in its absence, in the anticipation, in the knowledge that it could exist anywhere the next moment. And when I fully dragged myself to my feet, stepping toward the door, I understood one undeniable truth. No house is ever truly empty. No traveler is ever truly alone. And the Teakettler will always be there, whistling, following, waiting, just beyond your senses, always at the edges of hearing. I left that house with every nerve on fire, every sense screaming, and a new respect for the warnings I had once dismissed. Some legends aren't just stories. They're instructions, and the Teakettler's whistle was as real and as terrifying as anything I have ever heard.